Hög av serier med Anton Bjurvald, Anders Lundgren och Fredrik Kaplan.
My name is Anders Lundgren and you're listening to Hög av serier with Anton.
Hello.
Bjurvald.
Yes, that's me.
And our very esteemed guest, Becky Cloonan.
Hey.
Hey, great to have you here.
Thank you.
We're at the Uppsala Comix show today.
Yes.
And we have a fourth person in the room that won't approach the mic so much, but she's our photographer today, Linda Gustafsson.
Hey, Linda.
Hey, Linda. Okay, so this has been your first time in Uppsala, as I understand, and you did the Viking thing, of course.
The Viking thing. I saw. You mean the
grave mounds?
Yeah. I saw the Viking graves. That was really, really cool.
Yeah. And what else have you had time to see of Uppsala?
Not much. That was actually it so far.
Yeah.
I've walked around the city center a little bit. I might go see the Silver Bible tomorrow. But seeing the Viking graves was incredible. They were a lot bigger than, I mean, everyone said they were big, but I was didn't know exactly how big.
No.
So to see things in person like that and to walk around and get a feel for new places. This is actually my second time in Sweden, but the first time I went to Helsingborg for the afternoon.
Okay.
Because I was in Denmark for a few days, and they were like, "Oh, you can take a boat to Sweden," and me and my friend were like, "Oh yeah, let's go to Sweden." Mm-hmm. So we went to Sweden for the day. We had some coffee and walked up a hill and saw a tower, and then I went back.
Yeah.
So this is actually technically the first time I've really been to Sweden, but
Yeah, if you have the time before returning, there are some real nice ruin stones. If you walk out of this venue and take a left up the hill, past the church, you have a park with some nice
excellent. Yeah, I'd love to see.
Yeah.
I've got all day tomorrow too. I leave on Tuesday. I'm going to the Netherlands after this.
Okay. So you're doing like a European...
Well, I'm going to Roadburn after this, which I did all the festival artwork for. And so it just worked out really well because I was like, oh, it's right in the neighborhood. Yeah. And perfect timing.
Yeah, because you do travel a lot.
I do. I traveled a lot. I have a kind of a case of wanderlust a little bit. But now I moved to Austin, Texas in October last year, and so this is I've stayed in Austin since then, and this is the longest I've been in one place for years, for 4 years or so.
Yeah. And you were actually born in Europe.
Yeah, I was born in Italy. Right at the top of the Leaning Tower.
Yeah,
I wasn't. I'm kidding. No, no, I was born in a hospital.
How come? What's the story about?
Well, I was talking to my mom about it. I was like, if I could be born somewhere, I would like to be born maybe in Italy, in the Tuscan Valley, if you could make that happen. Yeah. And so she was like, we'll see what we can do. And so we decided on Pisa was the best place for me to be born.
Cool.
Yeah.
So.
That's nice.
Thank you. Yeah.
But I thought that was impossible, but you pulled it off.
I pulled it off.
Yeah. Anything can be done if you just set your mind to it.
Exactly. Cool. That's a story I like to tell anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Groovy.
But you grew up in the States?
Yeah, in the States. I grew up mostly in a small town in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And it was a lot of trees. We had a wood stove, so we had to chop wood every winter for heat. So it was very, there wasn't too much going on, really, just trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very small town. And so I think a lot of I like drawing a lot of forest scenes, a lot of trees. Maybe some of that's because of where I grew up.
Yeah.
And you had one friend who was into comics as well.
Yeah. I think there were probably a few other people that I knew that read comics, but she was really the only person that drew comics. So we drew comics together. And all through, since I can remember, I think 6th grade. We met when I was 13, I think 12 or 13 years old. And since then we were really, really, really good friends. We did all these books together.
Okay.
When I say all these books, I mean we drew a lot of comics when we were kids together. Yeah.
Are they still extant or?
Oh yeah, they're kid comics. I mean, they're they're.
And you still have them?
I think my mom's probably has a folder with some of it, but we drew so much. We drew there was one comic that we did. It was over 400 pages long. It was about space gladiators.
Ah.
It was called Planet Y.
Planet Y.
Planet Y. Because we thought Planet X, and then we were like, Planet X sounds so cool. But then it was like, it's too much like the X-Men.
Yeah.
This is your child's thinking, you know?
Yeah.
So we were like, well, we'll call it Planet Y, because it's like the next letter in the alphabet.
Yeah, and it becomes slightly existential.
Yeah, Planet Y.
Yeah.
But it was a bunch of gladiators on the planet, and they fought monsters.
Well, that's not the worst.
That's an auspicious beginning.
Yeah, it was a pretty ambitious comic, I think.
And you kept on drawing.
Yeah, kept drawing.
Yeah.
I went to school for animation in New York, and I dropped out after 2 years. So that was fun.
Animation dropout.
Animation dropout.
Hardcore.
Yeah, I did a little bit of animating. I worked on that film Super Troopers. You remember?
Do you remember?
It's the same movie. I get an image, but
yeah, there's like a small animated part in that, and I did that, and I did some storyboards. I storyboarded a lot.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. It was animation school was it was interesting because you're still being taught storytelling.
Yeah.
And I had some incredible teachers. Janet Ben was one of my teachers, and she was the director of the first season of Beavis and Butthead and the Beavis and Butthead movie. But she has a very strict grasp on story and editing, and you know, when you talk about animation, she's knew her stuff really well. And then I had Ralph Bakshi as a teacher.
Oh, cool.
Who is a legend.
Yeah.
So I learned so much from him. But that was a phenomenal, and actually it helped when I was dropping out.
Okay.
Because then you start to realize it's like, I don't need a degree in art. I don't need to, you know, when you talk about some fields of study, like being a teacher or a scientist or anything, you know, or a lawyer or whatever, you need degrees, and the more degrees that you get, the more you get paid.
Yeah.
With comics, no one's ever asked me to see a degree.
No.
If I went in and got my master's in sequential art, I would not get it. I wouldn't get a raise. I'd go to my editors and I'd be like, "Hey, look, I just got my master's degree." They'd be like, "Well, congratulations, get back to work."
Hey,
So-
your page rate is going up
Yes.
this much.
No, not even. Nothing. Getting a degree wouldn't affect my art at all.
No.
So once I started to realize that, I have no future in animation.
Yeah.
But you know that's how Kirby started out as well. It was
Kirby
like-
animator.
No, Jack Kirby. He was like the in-betweener for at the Fleischer Studios.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fleischer was a big. When I was doing animation, I studied him a lot.
Uh-huh.
And with animation, you get a really intensive drawing. You get that with illustration too. I think if you have an illustration background and if you go to school for illustration, but going to school for animation, it is hammered into you, life drawing and drawing for animators and the idea of movement and this kind of thing. And that was really useful, I think, for me.
Cool.
And from this, you went to self-publishing
Self-publishing
again, yeah?
Mm-hmm. But that's just, you know, out of necessity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But should we fast forward a bit and talk about one of your pet projects or something that you do out of necessity? You still self-publish.
Mm-hmm.
Once a year, a beautiful book that you have like total control.
Yeah, I haven't done it in the past few years just because I've been too busy.
Okay.
But I did 3 short stories, and I was doing one a year for several years. And it wasn't always just with me. It was with, I worked with Fabio Moon and Gabriel Bá for a few years, and we would do, short stories together.
Great stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of fun. And so, I was trying to do and then I started doing it on my own, and then published one every year, and then I published a collected edition in 2014. I published a collection, of my short stories, and then since then I just haven't had time. I've been too busy.
But can you still get that from
Nope.
your website?
It is sold out.
Sold out.
Sold out. I think there's probably on. Sorry, I think there's a website called Warehouse. It's WEREHOUSE, like a werewolf, but a warehouse.
Oh, okay.
Warehouse.ca, and it's a Canadian distributor, and I think they still have my self-published mini comics, but not the collected edition.
Okay. We'll check that out.
Yeah, and they're available on Comixology for $1 too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Which is super cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Actually,
very cheap.
it is.
But when you have total control, what What sort of paper do you like? What's going down to like really brass tacks about those?
Are we talking about printing paper or the paper for
paper for the
or for drawing on?
For both, I guess.
Well, when I draw comics, I like a smooth Bristol, and I like a something a little thicker, but not nothing ridiculous. I wouldn't want to spend I don't get too nerdy about the supplies that I use.
No.
But I really like, when we talk about printing, I got a bunch of samples from the printer that I used. For my mini comics, I used a small printer. This is so getting into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, but that's nice.
Yeah, I used a small printer. They were called P&L. And they're in Denver, Colorado, and it's an anarchist collective. And they were great. And they did silk screening and the offset printing. Okay. And I don't know if you guys are familiar too much with printing.
More on a theoretical level than actually doing it. But.
Yeah. Well, when you're self-publishing, I learned a lot. One of the first things I learned, especially from working with Fabio Moon and Gabriel Bá, we did a comic together and it was 2 parts. Yeah. And that was the biggest mistake. We should have only done one, because then you get, when we printed the second one, we realized we had run out of a lot of issue 1. Yeah. And people wanted issue 1, and we're like, oh, we don't have it. And then we had to, do we want to reprint issue 1? And then we're going to have extra issue 1s and then too much issue 2s. So when I went from there, I was like, every short story that I do now has to be 1 story. Yeah. It can't be 2 parts. No. So when I did Wolves, that was the first one. I was about a werewolf.
I've actually read that one.
Yeah. And I was talking to some of the guys at P&L. Yeah. I get it confused because there's another silk screener called DNL, and they're up in Portland, I think, or they're up in the Northwest. Yeah. So P&L, and they recently changed the name to, I think, Diamond Hill Printing for their silk screening stuff. But I wanted to get a silk screen cover because I wanted it to be limited and really nice. When you feel the paper, you feel that it's thick and it smells good and the ink is painted on, Yeah. So it has a very tactile feeling to it. Yeah. So that was kind of important to me. And then I chose offset printing because I was making a run of a few thousand, and if you print digitally, your copy's not gonna your price per copy isn't gonna go down. No. But when you print, if you're printing offset, everything's done on plates. Yeah. So the more that you print, the less expensive it's going to be. Okay. And it's the same thing with silk screening. The more that you print, the less expensive it becomes, because then you start just paying for supplies and,
And you've sold 7,000 copies or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just kept making them. Yeah. And in the end, I just ended up doing all offset because I couldn't, we couldn't keep up with the silk screen covers anymore. Just because it was too much. It's so much work to do. And it's not just for me, but for the printer as well. So we just ended up doing, I did a second run with all offset, which is, they came out really good. Yeah. I went from a white paper stock inside to an off-white, and it was ooh. All the guys at my studio they were do off-white, and I was like, are you sure? And then we got it in, and it was oh man, it's it looks old.
Yeah. Everybody wants off-white.
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, I liked the really bright white paper. I liked the way that looked. It was very clean and crisp.
Yeah. Yeah. But when these days you write scripts as well, but do you prefer working in a short stories or the long form storytelling? What's you've tried both now?
Yeah, I like the long form. It's challenging because then you have to just keeps you on your toes. And I find that sometimes you end up writing yourself into a corner. I'll finish a script and I'll be man, I wonder how she's going to get out of that one. Okay, yeah. And I do have it planned out, but then sometimes you think about it and you're just maybe I don't know. You end up writing things that you're surprised by. Yeah. And then sometimes the way that you have it planned just doesn't go that way. Yeah. But I try, even with my longer stories, I try and do them in so that when you finish a graphic novel, because when you write for comic books, you have to consider that people are getting them in monthly installments. So you're only reading 20 pages. So you have to make each 20-page installment feel satisfying for the reader. But then you also have to make sure that each of those 20 pages read well together. So when you collect it into a trade, your people are getting a satisfying read out of it, and it's not going to feel disjointed at all. So that's another thing. And then you have to think, by the end of the trade, it's probably going to be like another, 8 or 9 months before they get another one. Excuse me. So you have to make sure that that first volume is satisfying, but that it also can, you leave the door open so you can do more.
Yeah.
So it's all these, it's so weird because the floppies, the monthly comics, because they're floppy. I'm flopping my hand around. Yeah. The floppy editions, they're only going to last for the month or 2 months.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a shelf life, and they're not meant to be. They're disposable. Some people collect them, it's true, but honestly, most people aren't going to hold on to those things. They're going to collect the trade.
Yeah.
So it's such a weird industry because everyone wants to have the trade paperback, but then everyone wants to you want to make sure that your issues are coming out and satisfying as well. So
yeah. But that's interesting as well, because if you look at television now, some television shows are, for instance, Netflix are doing television shows that they're thinking this is most people are going to see this, they're going to binge it.
Right.
So we don't care about repeating the story at the end and at the beginning of every episode and stuff like that. So if you write for a graphic novel that is only going to be, your short stories or something like that, when you know that this is a final story. Yeah. In case of sort of book for book, do you have to sort of mentally think, okay, now I'm writing this type, or do you have the same type of a storytelling?
Well, I think about it in terms of the trade. Yeah. So when I think about when I'm doing Southern Cross, for example, I think about, what is the big story arc that we're telling, and then how are we breaking that up? And then when we break it up, where are the most satisfying parts to chop that story into 6 bits? Cool. And that's the same thing with Gotham Academy too. We sit down and we, when we pitched the story, we had everything. We have the whole story planned out already. Yeah. There's stuff that we've hinted at from issue 1 that we haven't even gotten to yet. Yeah. So.
And you hope you sort of.
We have 3 more graphic novels, I think, that we're going to do. Yeah. For Olive's story arc in Gotham. Speaking of Gotham Academy, the main character has 3 more trades. Yeah. But this is something that we planned from the very beginning, and we've actually stuck fairly close to what we were planning as well, which kind of surprised me because I was when we pitched it, it was well, here's the pitch, but we might have to go off script a little bit or deviate from our initial plan. But DC's been really supportive, and we've just everything's just worked out so far. So I was well, I guess we'll just keep doing what we're doing because why fix it if it's not broken?
Yeah, but I was going to ask you about that. What's the response you've got from the readers for Gotham Academy, because it's sort of a tryout for a new age group?
Yeah.
A lot of the new 52 titles were more, should we say,
a more adult,
more of an adult nature with a lot of violence, and this is more of a Harry Potter vibe.
That's exactly how I pitched it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was sitting down. Mark Doyle called me up. And he's like, do you have any ideas? Because I just got promoted. And I was like, yeah, I've got an idea. It's called Gotham Academy. And he's like, what's that? And I was like, well, it's Harry Potter plus Batman. And then I was like, equals a giant bag with a $sign on it. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm like, you guys don't have any YA stuff. And it just feels so right. I was like, it's about a bunch of girls at the most prestigious boarding school in Gotham, and they just go around solving mysteries. It's like Nancy Drew. Yeah. It's the Hardy Boys kind of.
I actually get an Steven Spielberg ambling feeling as well.
Steven Spielberg, Batman the Animated Series. We had so many touchstones for the Goonies. Yeah. So many different touchstones for this that that we're all inspired by. And Brendan, Carl, and I all have very similar inspirations. Yeah. So when we sit down, we talk about these characters. It just all fell into place. And when I got the phone call from Mark, I was actually in Montreal working with Carl, or working across from Carl, I should say. My desk was in a way where I looked at the right side of his head all day, and. He's like, well, who's going to draw it? And I was like, oh, Carl's going to draw it, Carl Kerschel. And Carl looked up and he's like, Becky, what are you talking about? And I was like, shh, it's okay. Shh. I was like, I'll tell you later. and then I was like, because this was the longest thing that I would have, I was starting to work on Southern Cross as well.
Yeah.
But these Southern Cross and Gotham Academy happened at like the exact same time for me.
Oh, okay.
And so I didn't have like any long format storytelling as a writer under my belt. Mark just called me like out of the... Well, I worked with Mark before, but not on anything.
Yeah.
Right. So he really trusted me on this. And I was like... And Brendan Fletcher was also in the studio at the time. He was hanging out. He didn't work at the studio. We were just all friends. So sometimes he stops by to have lunch and stuff.
Yeah.
And I look over. I'm like, oh, Brendan Fletcher can help me write it. And Brendan looks up and he's like, they're like, what? And I was like, I'll tell you later. It's fine. Shh, don't worry.
got it.
I got this. This is cool. So I sat down afterwards and I talked to him. I was like, guys, we've got this. Like, we have to put a pitch together.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I couldn't carry on this. Like, I needed some help to write this story.
Yeah.
Because I've never done monthly comics like as a writer before. And Brendan and Carl worked together on The Flash for Wednesday Comics. And Brendan and Carl also worked on the Assassin's Creed comics together. So I know Brendan's a good writer. And him and I have very similar influences and we like all the same movies and this is like a good sign. And then when we sat down, we started talking about it. And I was like, okay, I want it to be about this girl. And this is what I want her story arc to be. And they were like, that's cool. She needs like she needs this kind of friend and she needs like that kind of person in her life. And we need a character like this. And so then we started putting her crew together, like her crew of friends and like frenemies and... You know, who's the guy that she has a crush on and who's her ex-boyfriend and who's her best friend. And then when you start seeing all this together and then the characters started, Carl started drawing them and they all came to life. It just came together so naturally. It's like, it has to be, like, this has to be right. What we're doing has to be like the right thing to do just because it felt so good.
Yeah. But have you heard from the audience?
Yeah, our sales for... Our monthly sales were always good, but I don't think they were ever great because, a lot of our audience is more like younger kids who might not be able to get to a comic book store or might not, collect comic books. But once it got into bookstores and libraries and schools, like our trade did so well, they were like, okay, you can do as many issues as you want.
Yeah.
Before they were kind of like, well, we'll do a graphic novel or two and see how it goes. And then after that, they're like, okay, we heard from Warner Brothers and they're 100% behind you. Cool. And they want... Yeah, and our second trade just came out in, I want to say January. It might have been February. So we have 2 volumes out now. And the second trade outsold the first one, like within the first week. Yeah, cool. Which is like, it's insane. Like it's done so well.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we are really, really happy about it. And it came out, it's like right up there with all the Batman. It's like Batman, then Gotham Academy. And I was like, for a movie, the film just came out, like Batman, Superman came out. So everyone's going out and buying Batman books right now. For our book to be up there with all those Batman books is like, that's really, really cool. Yeah.
But putting Gotham Academy into the larger perspective of the DC universe, what kind of constraints has that put on your writing, or have you just been able to do what you want to do?
We kind of just do what we want to do.
Yeah, great.
There's been a few times when, like, we had Professor Milo was our science teacher. Yeah. And if anybody's familiar with like the animated series or anything, you know who Professor. He's not a great guy. He's a bad guy. But he's a great scientist, and during Batman Eternal, like they killed him.
Okay.
And I was like, and so when we came back, we're like, okay, and Professor Milo, and they're like, oh, you can't use Professor Milo because he got killed in Batman Eternal. And I was like, you killed our science teacher? Like, he was our science teacher. You have to ask, like, please, someone. I know we just draw a book for kids, but you can't just kill off. You can't just, we need our teachers, guys. Like, there's only a limited number of characters that we can have.
Yeah. And it's like, now you have to get an...
Now we need a new science teacher.
Yeah.
Now we have to, like, look for a new teacher. So we got Professor Langstrom.
Cool.
See, that
works.
Yeah, it did work. And it was actually part of our plan, but we had planned for Professor Langstrom to replace Dr. Milo anyway. But it just happened sooner than we had expected. Yeah. So we kind of had to like shuffle a few things around, and then it gets awkward for us because then all of a sudden the teacher's gone and we're like, oh, Professor Milo disappeared. Like we have to say it instead of showing it. I'm a big fan of like showing things instead of saying it. And it was like, So we had to talk a little bit about like the teachers that we're using, and our readers aren't like necessarily following like what's going on in Batman too, or like other stories.
Yeah.
I think some of our readers, it's like our book kind of exists in a little bubble.
Yeah.
And it's pretty safe. And I had to make sure that, I remember we sat down, and because when Batman became a robot, and it was like Jim Gordon robot Batman.
Yeah.
I was
we kind of stayed away from that.
well. I liked what they were doing with it, but I was also like, I don't want like all of a sudden in volume 2 of Gotham Academy, if Batman shows up, he's a robot and he's Jim Gordon. Kids are going to be like, if you're a 12-year-old kid reading volume 1 and then you pick up volume 2, you're like, why is Batman a robot? Like, you have no idea. There's continuity means nothing to you.
Yeah.
No.
So I was like, I had to make sure that Gotham Academy stayed away from the continuity.
Yeah.
And it could, like, I care about canon, like what's, what the characters, who Batman is, and that's, like, we can use that. And, like, the canon of the DC universe, but I don't want to be beholden to the continuity of it.
No. Yeah.
Especially not now when they change it over, like, every 3 years or something.
Well, right now they just had the
Rebirth.
Yeah, I was like, what's it called?
Yeah.
Sorry, the Rebirth stuff, and I was like, we can't, like, if you do Rebirth with our book, if we have to deal with that, we're going to lose so many readers because these kids aren't going to understand what Rebirth is.
Yeah.
When I was a kid and I had to figure out that, like, I couldn't even understand that Uncanny X-Men and regular X-Men were different.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't. Like, my child brain couldn't process.
I have problems with that now, and I'm actually your age. So.
Yeah. Well, even that is like I was buying Uncanny X-Men and X-Men, and I was thinking that they were the same story, and I was so confused. And I was like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So I know kind of what it's like to follow comic continuity, being a kid and having that. I'm just really like aware of that stuff. And DC's been really great about like, we don't have to deal with the Rebirth stuff. It doesn't affect our book at all, except we get reset to number 1.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And it's a little confusing, but I don't think it's going to affect trade sales at all, or it's going to affect the trades are going to continue being numbered number 3, number 4.
If most of your readers buy the trades, it's not going to be that confusing.
Exactly.
Even though it's a bit...
It's a bit weird because we're not redoing the series. Like, the series continues.
Yeah.
We're doing the same story. Like, we're not rebooting the series. We just pick off exactly where we left off.
That's why it's a weird business model to renumber.
It is weird, and I get it a little bit. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't really get it.
But we had the Marvel Squirrel Girl who said that their number 9 said, in the last previews catalog, they said, for the first time ever, a number 9 for a comic.
I know.
That's pretty funny.
It's great. Ryan North is incredible. And Squirrel Girl has actually been one of my favorite comics from Marvel, like the new stuff.
Yeah.
And now you're going to start writing for Marvel as well.
Mm-hmm. Punisher.
My main man.
Yeah.
Punisher.
I saw your belt buckle.
Yeah.
So
so what? This is also like this is a new start, but how is that going to play into the whole Secret Wars mashing together continuities? Which Earth are you on?
The regular Earth, Earth, like the regular one.
Yeah, 616.
Is that our Earth?
Or which one is it? 200111 was Punisher Max.
You lost me. Actually.
But we're on regular Earth.
Yeah, regular Earth.
Yeah, regular.
And
regular old Earth.
Yeah, and what does that look like? Do you get like a writer's bible with guidelines on?
No,
like that
Punisher's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to just retell the origin story, because everyone's done the Punisher origin. We're not trying to reinvent the Punisher.
No.
It's a new number 1. It's a new story. It's Frank Castle. I think he's a little bit younger than he's been in the past, but he does what he's doing best.
Yeah.
He's having fun,
Yeah.
shooting some guns.
Yeah.
Getting revenge.
What's the Becky Cloonan's the stamp on Punisher? What makes it a Becky Cloonan Punisher?
We're having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's definitely sure. I keep trying to take away his guns.
Okay.
I'm like, come on, guys, like, take away his guns. I'm not a gun. I keep saying this. I'm not really a gun person. So when I came onto Punisher, I was like, let's have some fun, but let's also like see what kind of situations we can put him in to try and get him out of it. And I also wanted to portray him less like. I didn't want him to have like any narration, and I was like as little dialogue as possible. I want him to be like Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
I want him just to be like killing people, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
more
he's
like a force of nature.
more like a force of nature, but we do get a lot of really funny moments with him, and there are I wouldn't say moments that make him like human, but human-esque moments.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like what you did with the it's in the again with the superheroes on the future past and what have you. But you've done an alternate cover for number 3.
Yeah.
Where the Punisher is in a
in the woods.
Yeah, can we talk about that? He's in
a little bit. It's not the cover is not out yet. I have showed a little preview, a cheeky preview of it today at the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to move Punisher out of New York, like out of his comfort zone. Punisher's always in his New York is like his home,
Yeah.
And it's part of him, right? But what happens when you take him out of there and you have to have him survive on,
But did you read the LA stuff?
Yeah.
Mitch Gerard. But yeah, my comment about the cover was the fact that you had wolves on the cover, and in the Mitch Gerard's books, Nathan Edmondson, he adopts this coyote.
A little coyote dude. Yeah, that's super cute. Some people ask me.
That was a human moment.
Yeah, some people were asking me like, is he gonna have like the coyote come back? I'm like, no, sorry, he's not.
Okay.
But some of my favorite movies, like I said, Jason Voorhees is like the extreme example of that, but when I was pitching it, I was like, Jason Voorhees, right? Like, come on, guys, you get it. And everyone's like, that's kind of cool. But like, John Rambo First Blood, the idea of like taking someone who's, been in all these really intense situations. He's been in combat and had a lot of training, and then having him have to use that survival training. So I wanted to give it more of a kind of a survivalist tone. So, but I think the book is definitely going to morph. It changes a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's I pitched 10 issues, so we'll see. I guess how sales go and stuff.
Yeah.
But
I hope you get to do more, because it's 10 issues is not a lot.
No, it's not a ton, but it's got it's planned out in a way where I had some very specific like moments that like represent different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So hopefully we get to those, and I don't know. It's funny that they asked me to do Punisher just because I'm just so not a gun person, But I think coming from a different, coming from somewhere else with it and trying to tell just a really fun story, will be fun.
But do you mean like fun in a darkly humorous way? Because
fun in like a really like, hey, this is a.
Yeah.
When I say fun, I mean like, gouging people's eyes out fun.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's sort of fun.
That's sort of fun.
Yeah. Because
Thursdays.
What kind of eras are you like looking back to? When you've read some Punisher now, and what's
the first Punisher I ever read was Punisher War Journal, the Jim Lee stuff.
Oh yeah.
Which was just amazing, and I was a big Jim Lee fan when I was a kid.
Yeah, my favorite cover is the one where he's got the yellow shirt. And,
and,
a lot of vacations end happily on Hawaii. They are not in this book.
So good, so good. And then, of course, the Punisher Max, which with Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon. And working with Steve is amazing. And I'm so glad he's on this book because Steve takes care of all the gun stuff. So, I can have some ideas about what kind of guns I'd want to use. And I have some scenes where I'm like, oh, he's going to use this type of gun. But I don't know too much about the guns. And I realize that a lot of the guns will inform a lot about the scene or about the person using it. Yeah. Because it is a very personal thing, It's just what type of gun would a cop use? What type of guns are issued by the police or by the FBI? These is this person ex-military? Because then they might be using guns that were issued by the military, and that you could just, for someone who's really informed about that stuff, it says a lot about the character. So the fact that I don't don't know too much about it, and I'm not really informed about guns, but I understand the importance of what it represents.
Yeah.
So I can kind of leave that stuff up to Steve, and he will make the choice, and he can, if someone's an older guy, he might have an older gun, and that gun would mean something to him because maybe it got passed down from, maybe he kept it from when he was younger, or maybe it was passed down from his father or something. And so having a guy running around carrying a very old gun, it would say a lot about that character because it's, where that came from. Yeah. And the fact that Steve's really good at that is a big weight off my shoulders because being aware of it is one thing, but then having to learn all this stuff about guns, which is just something that I'm not passionate about. Guns and cars, I don't really care.
It's not nothing you like to spend time drawing.
Right, exactly. I don't like drawing guns. And that's not exactly true. No? Well, when I was doing Killjoys, it was all ray guns, and that was fun because everyone had a different gun, and they were all
personalized.
Yeah, and so that's fun, and it's just not a passion of mine.
No, and you don't want people, writing in, but about you put.
I get that already, and I'm not even drawing it.
No?
people write to me about Steve's drawings.
Yeah,
they'll be like, "Oh, this holster it's wrong," or someone will be like, "Oh, this bullet casings are ejecting from the wrong side of the gun." I'm like, guys,
but that's
I'm not drawing it. Don't, and I don't care.
But you wrote the
thank
script.
you. Yeah, and thank you for writing to me about this. I appreciate the time that you took to look at this picture. But first, I didn't draw it. Second of all, I don't really give a shit. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's
and on a personal level, it's really good that you don't have to listen to everyone's opinion.
Yeah,
you're allowed to have it, but you don't have to.
Well, I wish that I didn't have to listen to it. But it's I don't know. It's I like that he's got such a strong following, and I like that the people are really passionate about it. Yeah, but it's also guys, it's exhausting. Yeah. Let me tell the story, and if
Yeah.
Yeah, but
sorry that I interrupt you. I just want to ask you about. You said that you. I just because for me, Steve Dillon is he's the preacher.
Preacher, yeah,
and stuff like that. And then when he started to draw Punisher, I was like, this is weird.
Yeah,
this feels like stepdad is going. This is the wrong guy.
Yeah,
and then I learned to appreciate him. Drawing Punisher.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that you write different? Have you sort of changed the way you've written because it is Steve that is drawing, or was it always him?
Well,
going to draw it?
No, I didn't know he was going to draw it at first. And they had mentioned they'd thrown his name out a little bit, but we didn't have an artist, until. Excuse me again. I keep drinking this Loca and I'm burpy.
It's okay.
I'm full of gas right now, you guys. I didn't know it was going to be him. Yeah. So when I first started writing it, I was just kind of writing the script. When I work with Andy Belanger on Southern Cross and Carl Kerschel on Gotham Academy, I know those two very well. And I've worked with them a lot, and I'm very, very, very familiar with their art. And I haven't just worked with them, I've worked with them in the same space.
Yeah.
So, we shared a studio in Montreal together. And so when I write for them, I can write directly for them. And with Steve, although I'm familiar with his work on Punisher and I've read Preacher, and I don't know him as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to I'll put in jokes for other people, and sometimes I put in jokes for the Punisher ones, but I don't know because I don't know him very well.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that after working with him for a little bit, I'll get to know him better and be able to write for him more. Mm-hmm. I try and do stuff like. There's a scene when Punisher throws a smoke bomb. And I was like, and then for 3 pages, it's all really smoky. And it's Punisher running around the smoke, knifing dudes, Yeah. So I'm talking about, it's fun.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking give poor Steve a break.
Yeah.
And have a few pages of smoke where there's no background to draw. So, you know what I mean? Stuff like that where I'm very conscious about how the pages are and stuff that I think would be fun to draw. Maybe he would think would be fun to draw.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm as an artist, I'm also thinking about, workload and what's fun. And, I want him to have a good time on the book too.
Yeah. Have you been on the other end of that you felt like maybe someone has written something for you and you were like, oh my God, if I have to draw this guy's, axe or whatever one more time, I have to call him and tell them stop.
Yeah,
stop
not a lot, but
when I was have to name any names if you don't want to, but I just want.
No, I was actually going to say when I was working on Killjoys, it was so dense. That book, there were so many characters and there were so many different settings and there was so much happening. I was like, guys, we need to just we need some smoke bombs, guys. There's so much happening in this book that it was the most challenging book I've ever worked on. Yeah. When I say challenging, just like labor intensive. It was like real. Like pages were taking me like 2 or 3 days to draw because it was just
like high concept, high detail.
Yeah, and then it was, and sometimes it was just planning out the pages that would take a whole day. I'd be like, how do I lay this out? What do I, how am I going to even draw this? Yeah. So the concept stuff was really crazy.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, but now that you've planned out your Punisher story, are you free of the the bigger picture here as well? Because I'm thinking about, for instance, during the Nathan Edmondson run, they kind of shoehorned Electro in to coincide with the Amazing Spider-Man 2 film, and you had Jigsaw in Girls in White Dresses.
I don't know. I think we're pretty good. I think we're good to go on this one. It's pretty. What I've pitched is pretty tight. Like I have each issue is like there's a plan to happen on every issue, and the first 3 issues were really tightly plotted out before we even started. So I had once I started, it was a pretty easy like jump into it. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem to deal with like the continuity stuff like we were talking about, which I like. Yeah. It's kind of daunting working for DC and Marvel because you never know. You never know when like something's going to happen and they're going to be like, Batman's a robot now.
Yeah, and you are a cog in a big machine.
Right,
Although
exactly.
you can be a creative cog. I mean, still you have to be part of the big machine.
Exactly.
Unless you pitch your own Gotham Academy, which makes the cog outside.
We're kind of still beholden to that a little bit, but we're safe. We're kind of in a safe spot, and we've definitely talked to our editors and had these conversations. And with Punisher too, it's Punisher, but we're not seeing there's like no old villains where it's all new characters and stuff like that. So it's fun.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've heard this a million times that people talked a lot about that you were the first lady to draw Batman.
Yeah, that happened.
But you dodged a bullet for writing the Punisher, at least because you're the third lady to write the Punisher.
Oh, excellent. Someone asked me that the other day, and I was like, I have no idea. Like, I don't look this stuff. When I get the job, I don't look up if I'm like, ooh, am I the first woman to do this?
No.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, so, Margaret Clark was the first one.
Excellent.
Yeah, Punisher.
Someone took that
Captain
bullet from
America,
me.
And then, Valerie D'Orazio did 2 stories.
Amazing. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't even know I was the first woman to draw Batman until after I drew it.
Someone told you?
Yeah, someone looked it up on the internet.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Apparently it's a big deal. So that's cool.
Yeah, but we touched briefly on movies and things, and I read a whole bunch of interviews with you in preparation for this, but it was fun to see that one of your main inspirations was Fritz Lang.
Yes.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense with some images in your stuff that really...
Yeah, I love silent films, and I love black and white films. I especially love the black and white silent films, of course, black and white, because some of the film stock was... not quite as good, so you get this really stark contrast between black and white, and you don't really get as much middle ground with the grays. And I when I was first introduced to it, I just kept watching, and I think it informed a lot of my earlier work, especially. But I think you can still see it now. I'll still put it on in the background if I'm want something to watch, but I don't want to have to watch anything. I'll just put it on, so every time I look up, there's something cool happening, like on the TV.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I actually recently just did a poster for Mondo for Haxen, which is that it's a Swedish film.
It's a Swedish film, Benjamin Christensen. He kind of burned his career with that one.
Well, I think it's awesome.
I love it, and it's a classic, but he didn't get much work after that.
No, it's such a weird film, and it has such a weird feeling when you watch it. And so we did the poster for Mondo, and we ended up having a screening at the Alamo Draft House in Austin. and we got Wreckmeister Harmonies is I think they're a Chicago band, but they did a live score for it, and they did a new score. So it was, and they didn't record it at all, so you could only see it there and in San Francisco. They had we had 2 showings of it. Yeah. But it was really cool to be involved in something like that and to see like this movie that, you know, was just incredible and weird and like, you know, so full of crazy visual imagery. That was really cool to be involved in.
Yeah, it's one of the best movies ever.
When I watched it the first time, I did it when I was studying film studies in university, and I saw it completely silent, no score at all.
Whoa.
And after like 20 minutes in, someone started snoring.
No.
So like for the rest of the movie, it was accompanied by someone. Well, practically sleeping and just snoring through the whole thing.
Nobody woke him up.
So I actually want to see that again without the snores. To
sometimes you can just put on your own score. And actually, there's a few bands that have done. I think there's a band called Year of No Light, and they did a score for Vampires. So you can actually go on YouTube, or if you sync it up yourself, you can actually watch it, turn the sound down, and then put on the Year of No Light soundtrack, which is incredible. And it's kind of a little like a lot of the old soundtracks that they have, like the original scores or whatever, you know, if they weren't able to record it back then, they put it out with a newer score. But, you know, sometimes it's cool to see it with a more updated, like, ambient soundtrack.
Yeah, Artsoy, the French band, they had a contract with Murnau Stiftung, so they did a lot of his stuff during the 90s. So it was some really great stuff. Nosferatu and Hexen as well. They did.
I had I bought a copy of Nosferatu when I was in college on DVD, and when I put it in the DVD player and it started playing, all of a sudden it was Peter Steele and Typo Negative started playing, and someone had spliced October Rust over Nosferatu, and it was like it actually synced up like almost perfectly, but it was just I was like, I cannot believe this. And then I was looking at it, and it was like someone had actually done. I don't know if it was like Typo Negative put that out or
there was an actual.
It was an actual release. It wasn't just like a fan edit, because I was like, what is going on here? I love that album too, but it was just like really funny. I wasn't expecting it.
Cool. I actually have one question. We are about the same age. I won't tell what age, but anyway, and I think we have probably
25. We're 25 years old.
Exactly. We have grown up in the about the same time. I think we have watched some of the same TV shows. And I find, as a comic book reader, that everything that I watched when I was young is now a comic book. Every sort of Transformer, G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, Turtles, everything is now a comic book.
Yeah, you're right.
Do you have anything that, first of all, this is a very specific question, hasn't been made into a comic book as far as you know, and would you like to do? Have you something that you would like to do from your childhood?
I'm trying to remember. I don't know.
Because that's what's happening now. Every creative artist is my age now, so you're just remaking
I would
my
say
childhood.
I don't know if I'd want to do any of it, because I don't necessarily. I don't know if there's like. I feel like I've done so much licensed work that to think about working on something like that is a little exhausting to think about. But I would love to see a serious Robotech comic. Yeah, that's the one. That is the one.
Oh, yeah. So not Denver the Last Dinosaur.
No. Don't.
No.
Don't say bad things about Denver. He was my friend when I was younger.
It was.
Okay, but Robotech.
Robotech would have been.
A good idea.
Yeah. Cool. If anyone's listening, someone should look up those rights.
IDW probably already have the license.
Yeah.
Like that.
I just want like a Max Amiria special.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So it's been very pleasant talking to you. So it's hard to
end
an interview like this, but
you guys, that's so sweet.
Best of luck with the Punisher and
any other future endeavor.
But keep the kill count high.
Yeah. Don't worry. We got that. We got it covered.
Yeah. If you can look at Anders, and then you describe him very well and make Steve Dillon draw an Anders into Punisher book, we will guarantee have his first tattoo.
Amazing.
That's just my idea.
Okay. That's your pitch.
That's my
great.
pitch to
I love
you.
it. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Becky.
Thank you for the Loca also. This is delicious.
Good.
I'm in my Loca years, you guys.
Yes.